Hello and welcome to week 1 and module 1 where we define communication. So in the first module we're going to talk about the information transmission model, how that arose, and how we use that in project management communication and program management communication, and some of the shortcomings of that information transfer model.
To understand the information transmission model better, let's use a case study here. In the late 90s, NASA and the European Space Agency worked together on the Mars Climate Orbiter. A part of the Mars Climate Orbiter was a lander, which was a weather station essentially that was going to land on Mars and transmit data, climate data, to the orbiter around Mars. So NASA and the European Space Agency engineers were working on the craft, and it launched in the late 90s. And when the lander detached from the orbiter, it crashed into the surface of Mars. In the engineering post-mortem, what was found was that the NASA engineers were using the imperial system of measurement, feet, pounds, inches, while the European Space Agency engineers were using the metric system. And there was no one to really check on which measurement system we were using, or was it understood that we were using the imperial measurement system when we were actually using the metric system. So that's the one thing about the information transmission model that's a problem. When you transmit information to somebody, you're assuming that understanding has occurred. And in some cases, assuming that understanding can have major ramifications. The transmission model of communication, or sometimes known as the information transfer model of communication, comes from the work of Dr. Claude Shannon, who was a brilliant scientist at Bell Labs. His job was to work on the telephone lines and to develop ways of increasing the signal clarity while reducing the noise on the lines. So in doing this, he came up with a model of communication, the Shannon-Weaver model of communication. And the reason we call it Shannon-Weaver is because he co-authored a paper back in 1945 with Mr. Weaver on his model of communication. And it's a very simple model to follow here. So if you start on the left-hand side, we have a source. You can consider me a source. And I have a message. So I am speaking into a microphone, which is turning what I'm speaking into digital signals that are going through a channel through this microphone into some software to record this signal, and then the signal that is recorded gets mixed in with some video and all these other things that you see in the lesson that I'm giving to you. And when you are playing this on your browser, the signal is then decoded for you. You're the receiver. That's your browser, your receiver. And it's decoded for you so that you get the message that I'm talking about. So as I'm explaining the Weaver model of communication, I'm using the Shannon-Weaver model of communication. And right there in the middle there, you see the noise piece. And that was one of the things that Dr. Paul Shannon was working on, is trying to reduce the amount of noise in the system. Now again, as I talked about in our case study before, the biggest issue with the Shannon-Weaver model communication is that when we transfer information, when we transfer that and transmit that communication, we're assuming that understanding has occurred. And that's going to be pretty much the theme throughout all these modules and through this program, that we need to really rethink about when we do communicate, has understanding occurred? And we'll talk about how to test for that. Communication theory is a vital part of the project management body of knowledge. And if you're a project management professional or you're working on that certification, you realize in the PMBOK guide that it's one of the 10 knowledge areas. Now, to give you an example of how long ago when I took this, it was the 3rd edition of the PMBOK, Project Management Body of Knowledge, and we had 9 knowledge areas. But what struck me when I was studying for the Project Management Professional certification was how vital communication was. When you look at the chart here on the right, it's one of the 10 knowledge areas, but when you really think about it, communication permeates through all the other knowledge areas. Scope. We're talking about the project vision here. How well do we communicate it? Time, cost, and quality. It may not seem like communication is important, but it vitally is important here. When we talk about time, we have to make sure we understand when holidays are occurring. We have to understand what kind of time measures we're talking about, overtime, those kind of things. So there's concepts we have to communicate clearly. Same thing with cost. When we talk about the budget, when we talk about scheduling and the budget with that and the resources and scheduling, there's still some communication there, making sure people understand. So I can go through all these different knowledge areas and show you how communication permeates through each piece of this. But the thing that struck me when I was working with the communication theory part of the PMBOK was how out of date it was. Now, I've been a communication scholar since my undergraduate days, and I have studied communication theory for now over 25, close to 30 years now. And I can tell you that it has evolved greatly, and it has evolved beyond the information transmission model. This is the reason why I wrote the book, and this is the reason why I'm doing this course, to show that the information transfer model is a good model of communication, but there's another model out there that's even more appropriate for project management. Communication is also a vital part of managing programs. There are 5 performance domains for program managers according to PMI Standard for Program Management. There is Program Strategy Alignment, Program Benefits Management, Program Governance, Program Lifecycle Management, and Program Stakeholder Engagement. All 5 performance domains depend heavily on the communication skills of the program manager. A major theme in this program and in our courses ahead is the idea of feedback and understanding. Now, communication theorists will tell you that the information transmission model, the information transfer model, the Shannon-Weaver model, all the terms we use this model we talk about, that it does have feedback in there. And that's true to an extent. I can send you my message, and then I can test to see if you receive the message as I intended to send it to you. But do I really know if you've understood that message? And as we all know with human communication, there are subtleties and nuances that are contained in messages we sent, and we think we may have told you, and we're verifying that what we told you is what we intended to tell you, but we are really not sure if you understood exactly what we meant. Let me give you a historical example. At the end of World War II, the Allied leaders came to the Japanese Prime Minister and asked for Japan's unconditional surrender. At a press conference, the Japanese Prime Minister said "mokosatsu," which in Japanese means no comment. Now, according to historians, what the Japanese Prime Minister was doing was saying that we need a little bit more time to consider the offer. We need to get this going through our different channels. That's why he said no comment at this time. However, the Allied leaders interpreted the no comment as more of a brush off, like we're not going to look at this offer of unconditional surrender. We're not going to comment it on this time. So this is why the decision was made after Harry Truman received the message, the telegram, that the atomic bomb tests were successful. And this is why Harry Truman made that decision to drop the 2 atomic bombs on Japan. And historians believe that this is a major misunderstanding on both sides and led to horrific results. So as you can see here, we can verify that the message was received as intended, but there were subtleties and nuances that caused major misunderstandings between the parties and led to these horrific results. So as we go through the program, we'll be talking more about understanding and how to set up understanding between communicating parties and to make sure our programs and projects run more successfully and attempt to avoid these kinds of misunderstandings, even minor misunderstandings.
Hey there, did you enjoy that lesson as much as I did? If you did, go ahead and give us a like. If you want to see another one, go ahead and subscribe. And if you have any questions or comments, put them below and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Moreover, is there somebody in your life who really needs this lesson right now? If so, go ahead and share it with them. I'm sure they'll appreciate it. Now, we look forward to seeing you in the next lesson where you can learn even more from the University of Maryland Project Management Center for Excellence. Thanks so much.